Hello, everybody. This is Mike History 2, and I am finally back. So, welcome to the first video of the year. No better way to start than on March 1st. Alright, so today we will be talking about Nazi Germany's planned new order after the war. And this will be a two-part series. So, part one, we will be talking about the Reichskommissariats. So, let's start off with a bit of context. The New Order of Europe was a political order which Germany wanted to impose on the conquered areas under its dominion. It had been established long before the start of World War II, but was publicly proclaimed by Adolf Hitler in 1941. Among other things, it envisioned the creation of a greater Nazi Germanic Reich to ensure the supremacy of an Aryan Nordic master race, massive territorial expansion into Central and Eastern Europe through its colonization of the German settlers, the physical annihilation of the Jews, the Slavs, Roma or Gypsies, and others considered to be unworthy of life, and the extermination, expulsion, or enslavement of most of the Slavic peoples and others regarded as racially inferior. And so the Greater Germanic Reich was the official state name of the country that Germany tried to establish in Europe during World War II. This pan-Germanic empire was expected to assimilate practically all of Germanic Europe into an enormously expanded country, which would include Germany, the Netherlands, Flanders, Luxembourg, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, and at least the German-speaking parts of Switzerland and Liechtenstein. An exception would be the German-populated territory in South Tyrol that was part of Allied Italy. Aside from Germanic Europe, the country's western borders with France were to be reversed to those of the earlier Holy Roman Empire, which would have meant the complete annexation of all of Belgium, French Switzerland, and large areas of northern and eastern France. Additionally, the policy of Lebensraum, or living room, planned mass expansion of Germany eastwards to the Ural Mountains. Hitler planned for the Russians living west of the Urals to be deported to the east. So, what is a Reichskommissariat? Well, a Reichskommissariat is the German designation for a type of administrative entity headed by a government official known as a Reichskommissar. Although many different such offices existed primarily throughout German history in a number of different fields, it's most commonly used to what amounted to vassals established by Germany in several occupied territories during World War II. While officially located outside Germany, these areas were directly controlled by their supreme civil authorities, who ruled their assigned territories as German governors, or Reichskommissars, on behalf of and as direct representatives of Adolf Hitler. The introduction of these territorial administrations served several purposes. Those envisioned or planned to be established in Western and Northern Europe were in general envisioned as the transitional phases for the future incorporation of various Germanic countries into Germany. On the other hand, the Eastern Reichskommissariats served mainly as sources of future Lebensraum for German settlers and the exploitation of natural resources. Another contrast was the level of administrative change implemented in these two regions. Local administrators and bureaucrats were pressured to continue the regular operations, however this would be under German supervision. Throughout the war, the Reichskommissariats in Western and Northern Europe kept their previous administrative structure, however in the eastern ones completely new administrations were made. All these entities were nonetheless intended for eventual integration into the Greater Germanic Reich, which would include the general area of Europe stretching from the North Sea to the Ural Mountains, dominated by Germany, which was to form the basis of this new super country. Now let's look at some of the Reichskommissariats themselves. To start off, let's look at the Western Front. And let's begin with the Reichskommissariat Norwegen, which was the civilian occupation regime set up by Germany in German-occupied Norway during World War II. Its full title was the Reichskommissariat for the Occupied Norwegian Territories. On April 9, 1940, Operation Weserübung began, which was the code name for Germany's invasion of Denmark and Norway during the Second World War, and the opening operation of the Norwegian campaign. Before the campaign was even completed, though, it was established on April 24, 1940, with its governor being Reichskommissar Joseph Terboven. Nevertheless, by June 10th, Norway had been conquered and would remain so until German military forces in Norway, then under the command of General Franz Böhm, surrendered to the Allies on May 9th, and the legal government was restored 2 days after Terboven had been deposed. Next, there is the Reichskomissariat Niederland, which was a civilian occupation regime set up by Germany in the German-occupied Netherlands during World War II. Its full title was the Reichskommissariat for the Occupied Dutch Territories. Its governor was Reichskommissar Arthur Seyss-Inquart, formerly the last Chancellor of Austria before initiating its annexation by Germany in 1938. The Battle of the Netherlands was a military campaign part of the Battle of France during World War II. The battle lasted from May 10, 1940, until the surrender of the main Dutch forces only 4 days later on May 14th. However, Dutch troops in the province of Zeeland continued to bravely resist the Wehrmacht until May 17th, so 1 week, when Germany completed its occupation of the whole country. On May 20th, 1940, a military administration was initially implemented, led by Alexander Freiherr von Falkenhausen. This was quickly disbanded, however, to be replaced by a new civilian administration under the authority of the newly appointed Arthur Seyss-Inquart. The new form of government was therefore not a German military government, but a civil government. Hitler chose this option on mainly ideological grounds. The Dutch were considered a racially related kindred people, and therefore had to be won over to Nazism. In the longer term, the Germans anticipated the direct integration of the Netherlands into the expanding Germany. However, this didn't happen as Canada liberated the Netherlands as the Canadian Armed Forces managed to push the German forces to the upper part of the Netherlands by May 1945, in which Germany surrendered, abdicating its claim to the Netherlands and all other occupied territories. There you have it, proof that we're actually good at fighting. Go Canada. Anyways, next we have the Reichskommissariat of Belgium in northern France, which was a Nazi-German civil administration which governed most of occupied Belgium and northern parts of occupied France in the second half of 1944 during World War II. The Reichskommissariat replaced an earlier military government, the military administration in Belgium and northern France, established in the same territory in 1940. On July 18, 1944, Joseph Grohe was named the first Reichskommissar of the territory, which covered the Nord-Pas-de-Calais region of France, as well as Belgium except for Eupen-Malmedy, which were incorporated directly into Germany. However, it lasted for very little time as the territory was mostly liberated by the Allies in September 1944, in the aftermath of the Normandy landings, so it really only existed for about 2 months. Alright, so we've looked at the Western Front, now let's go to the Eastern Front, which had many more Reichskommissariats, at least in theory. You'll see why. In summer 1941, German Nazi ideologist Alfred Rosenberg suggested that to facilitate the breakup of the Soviet Union, conquered Soviet territory should be administered in the following 5 Reichskommissariats: Reichskomissariat Ostland, Reichskomissariat Ukraine, Reichskomissariat Don Volga, Reichskomissariat Moskovian, or Moscow, Reichskommissariat Caucasus, and Reichskommissariat Turkestan. However, at Hitler's request, the Turkestan project was shelved for the immediate future, and Rosenberg was instead ordered to focus on Europe for the time being. Central Asia was determined to be a future target for German expansion as soon as its armies would be ready to move further east after the consolidation of present victories in the Soviet Union. Nevertheless, only 2 of these would actually be established. So the Reichskommissariat Ostland was established by Germany on July 17, 1941, during World War II. It became the civilian occupation regime in the Baltic states and the western part of the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic. The political organization for this territory, after an initial period of military occupation before its establishment, involved a German civilian administration, nominally under the authority of the Reich Ministry for the Occupied Eastern Territories, which was led by Alfred Rosenberg, but was actually controlled by the Nazi official Heinrich Lohse, who became its Reichskommissar. Germany's main political goals for the Reichskommissariat, as laid out by the ministry within the framework of Nazi policies for the East, which were established by Adolf Hitler, included the genocide of the Jews, as well as the Lebensraum settlement of ethnic Germans, along with the expulsion of some of the native population and the Germanization of the rest of the population. So, they used the order police battalions and Einsatzgruppen A and B with active participation of local auxiliary forces, and over 1 million Jews were killed in the Reichskommissariat Ostland. The Germanization policies built on the foundations of the Generalplan Ost, Ost is German for East, would later be carried through by a series of special edicts and guiding principles for the general settlement plans for Eastland, or Ostland. In the course of 1943 and 1944, the Soviet Red Army gradually reconquered most of the Ostland territory and there advanced westwards. But German forces held out in the Courland pocket until May 1945. However, with the end of World War II in Europe and the defeat of Germany on May 10th, 1945, the Reichskommissariat ceased to exist. Now, the only other one actually established was the Reichskomissariat Ukraine, which was a civilian occupation regime of much of German-occupied Ukraine. It was governed by the Reich Ministry for the occupied Eastern Territories, headed by Alfred Rosenberg, and was established on September 1st, 1941. Now, between September 1941 and August 1944, its Reichskommissar was Erich Koch. The administration's tasks included the pacification of the region and the exploitation of its resources and people for German benefit. Before the German invasion, Ukraine was a republic of the Soviet Union inhabited by Ukrainians with Russian, Polish, Jewish, Belarusian, German, Romani, and Crimean Tatar minorities. It was a key subject of Nazi planning for the post-war expansion of Germany and was by far the region that suffered the most under German rule. German occupation of Ukraine ended the lives of millions in the Holocaust and other German mass killings. It is estimated that between 900,000 and 1.6 million Jews and 3 to 4 million Ukrainians were killed during the occupations, and other sources estimate that 5.2 million civilians of all ethnic groups died because of crimes against humanity, war-related disease, and famine, amounting to more than 12% of Ukraine's population dying in only 3 years. However, just as with the Reichskomissariat Ostland, it was gradually reconquered by the Soviet Red Army between September 1943 and March 1944, before formally being disestablished on November 10th, 1944. So anyways, that was a brief explanation of the Reichskommissariats, the ones that were established at least, and Germany's plan for Europe. However, if you want to know Germany's plans for after the war in other parts of the world, then make sure to stay subscribed and I will make a video about that. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.